Okay, lesson 9. So lesson 9 wasn't all that good for me. What happened was, during the week, the clutch travel was adjusted. So with a constant mesh gearbox, say the first 50 millimeters of travel with the clutch is like a car clutch. Now when you push the clutch further down, it becomes a clutch brake, and what that does is it stops the gearbox from rotating, and then you can put it into gear just before you take off. It's never used while you're actually rolling along with the truck. It's only used for putting the truck in first gear, or the gear you're going to use to take off in. That clutch travel was adjusted during the week, and it sort of threw out my timing. It could have been that I was pushing the clutch in and using the clutch brake sometimes and messing up the gears. But yeah, I did have problems with the gearbox this lesson. The instructor was saying that a lot of businesses that own trucks, when they use professional drivers, they have just a little bit of movement and proper use of the clutch brake. And people that use labour hire companies, what they do is they adjust the clutch so that there's very little, that the full clutch travel only just engages the clutch brake. I had the feeling throughout, it's 8 or 9 months, once a week for 2 hours that I'm doing this training. And throughout the 8 months, I had the feeling that throughout that time that there was less and less clutch brake being engaged when I pushed the clutch down. And I think that was the case. Now it's been adjusted, so if you push it in just a little bit too far, the truck that I'm learning in does engage the clutch brake, and that's what threw me out this time. This lesson I got reversed. I did say in the previous video that I got reversed, but apparently what happens is, how it goes about is you practice the competency, reversing, and then you're assessed the next lesson. So yeah, it was reversing went okay, not at the start of the lesson, but then I went on a drive and I practiced reverse, and I got that competency reverse. I've said before in other videos that if there's one thing that in the long term shows that it's of benefit to learning with the lessons, it's sleep. Now this is the first time that having a lot of sleep hasn't really benefited me. So with this lesson, sleep didn't really help all that much. With this lesson, the adjustment of the clutch really made things different with changing gears. Yeah, what I meant to say there was, if I had a synchro mesh gearbox, or especially an automatic truck, I'd say that driving a bdouble would be an absolute breeze. I mean, I can clear the rear trailer on very tight turns. It's just the gearbox I'm using, the constant mesh gearbox. Yeah, so it'd be a very enjoyable experience if I was using an automatic gearbox. So I suppose that is to say that I'm really not a fan of the crash box or the constant mesh gearbox at all. And to be really honest, I'd rather not use one when I'm driving a truck. Having said that, the gearbox I'm using for my lessons, it is a fairly old gearbox, and the gear stick does flop around. So maybe if I had a new constant mesh gearbox with the gear stick in place, and you know, people do learn in this truck with this gearbox, and probably the ends of the gears are ground down a bit. Maybe a newer constant mesh gearbox would be easier to use. Anybody with the interest, or the more importantly the spare time to follow these videos, just ask you to bear in mind that I'm talking about something that I'm learning about, not something I'm familiar with, and I suppose that comes through in the videos. That's a picture of a bdouble. That's the similar to the vehicle I'm learning in. I drive a small truck, a 4.5 or 4.5 ton truck around the city centre, or what they call in North America downtown. And on the weekends, once a week for 2 hours, I drive a bdouble, and I've got to say that it does make for a pretty interesting driving style. With this lesson there was a lot of practicing taking off up a hill. I didn't stall it taking off up a hill. However, you know, things went really well. I'd bring the clutch to friction point, and the new trucks with the computer, what it does is that it increases, the computer increases the revs per minute, or the idle speed, as you let the clutch out. Say it's set to 500 revs per minute. As you let out the clutch, the computer will automatically bring the or put more power in the engine to keep it at 500 revs per minute, so it won't stall. So you bring the clutch out to friction point, you notice that the truck's taking the weight going up a hill, and then you increase the engine revs from there. So that's how you take off with a you know, a bdouble, or with this truck. It's a Mack 600 horsepower. So that went really well. I didn't stall it. The only problem was the gearbox going from, say, third to fourth, and that's what let me down this lesson. What's it like driving a bdouble or a road train? It's really good. It's a great vehicle, as I've said before. It tracks straight. It's a really good handling truck. You've got to keep your lane position. You've got to remember that you've got a fair amount of trailer behind you. So it's a matter of, if you're going around to the right, keep left in the lane. As I've said, things do get pretty interesting when you're turning a corner. Really the big difference between a bdouble and a semi-trailer is it's how you go into the corner. It's the setup for the corner. You do have to go into tight corners in the oncoming lane, and you have to really work the truck so that you're very wide in the lane, and you may have to actually exit in the lane to the right hand side, or the oncoming lane. You simply don't have a choice. There's no other way around it. That's what you got to do to clear the rear trailer, so that it doesn't go up onto the curb. Anyone interested, the videos I watch, I've spoken before about, are videos really helpful or confusing? As I've said before, you have to be careful. You got to try and hit the nail right on the head with the videos you watch, so that you don't confuse yourself. It's a bit of a toss-up whether or not videos are helpful. You might get an extra 5-10% benefit out of watching videos, watching other people's work, and trying to convert it to what you need to learn to get the license. Yeah, so for reversing, I've got How to Reverse a B-double by Brittany Jackson. I found that fairly helpful. I don't watch it so much anymore. This is a really good one, is Shifting Gears Up and Down by Are We There Yet 953. Another one for gears which is fairly good is Kenworth K104 Getting Some Tips by Bryce Baker. That's a good one. So they're both good ones. Reversing a B-double sideways into a dock is Reversing My B-double Truck to Be Unloaded by Sham 109. This is a really good, helpful video for B-doubles. It's Australian trucks trucking in Australia, docking B-double Jim Pearson Transport. That's by the Terry 1818. That's very helpful for my learning. It's got a lot of aspect to it, driving along the road, reversing, etc. What's another one? Well, this is an interesting one. Freightliner B-double reverses on the Toll Ship in one go by Freightliner Australia channel. That's an interesting one. Another good one I found is for coupling and uncoupling, is Splitting the Trailers on a B-double by 123 FLAW. So they're the main videos, and I've put them onto this playlist, and I've sort of brought it down to these videos for you know, being helpful for learning. So you know, I just come home and whatever spare time I've got, I'll just scan through a few of these videos just to keep myself up to date.